What if everything you've been taught about wealth, about money, about abundance was completely backwards? Think about it for a moment. You've been told that financial success comes from hard work, from being in the right place at the right time, from luck, from connections, from that winning lottery ticket. You've been conditioned to believe that wealth is something out there, something external, something you have to chase, hunt down, or worse, something you have to hope will randomly fall into your lap. Has this ever happened to you? You work hard, you save every penny, you follow all the rules, and yet true abundance seems to dance just beyond your reach, like a mirage in the desert that disappears the moment you think you're close enough to touch it. Florence Scovel Shinn discovered something that shattered everything she thought she knew about prosperity. For years, she lived exactly like you might be living right now, believing in lack, watching the rich get richer while she struggled, accepting that some people were simply destined for wealth, while others were destined for poverty. She thought the universe distributed its gifts through some mysterious cosmic lottery that she could never quite understand or influence. She was convinced she was a victim of her circumstances, powerless against the tides of fortune that seemed to favor everyone but her. But here's where the story takes an extraordinary turn. Her teacher, a man named Abdullah, revealed to her a truth so profound, so revolutionary, that it transformed her entire existence. He showed her that she wasn't a victim at all. She was the operant power. The conditions of her life weren't happening to her. They were happening through her. Every circumstance, every financial struggle, every moment of lack was actually a reflection of something she was unconsciously creating from within. But before we begin, please hit the like button and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's A's. Always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world. And if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of our future videos. Now, what Florence discovered next will challenge everything you think you know about manifesting money. When she stopped begging God for things, when she stopped hoping and wishing and crossing her fingers for some external force to save her, and instead began assuming the feeling of already having what she desired, everything changed. Not gradually, not slowly, dramatically and completely. The same law that transformed her life from poverty to prosperity is available to you right now, in this very moment. But here's the problem, and stay with me until the end, because what you're about to discover might surprise you. Most people are still playing the old game. They're purchasing lottery tickets with hope instead of imagination. They're investing their energy in chance, rather than in the creative power of their own consciousness. The question isn't whether you have this power. You do. The question is whether you're using it consciously or unconsciously, and more importantly, whether you're about to learn how to shift from unconscious creation to conscious mastery over your financial reality. Here's the hidden truth nobody wants to tell you. The conventional path to wealth is designed to fail. Think about everyone you know who followed the rules perfectly. They worked hard their entire lives, didn't they? They saved diligently, denied themselves small pleasures, clipped coupons, budgeted every dollar, and maybe even played the lottery week after week, hoping those numbered balls would finally align in their favor. And yet, despite all that effort, despite all that sacrifice, true wealth remained just out of reach. Why? Because they were operating from a fundamentally flawed premise. They were conditioned from birth to believe that fortune is distributed by external forces, that if you just work hard enough, if you're lucky enough, if you happen to be in the right place at the right time, then maybe, just maybe, prosperity will find you. But that's not how it works. That's not how it's ever worked. And the people who discovered this truth, people like Florence Scovel Shinn, found themselves standing at the edge of a revelation so profound it changed everything. The real transformation begins when you understand that the pain you carry around money isn't actually about money at all. It's about something much deeper, something most people never examine because it's too uncomfortable, too confronting. The pain is about your concept of yourself. Deep within your consciousness, in that secret place where your most fundamental beliefs about who you are reside, you've accepted a state, and that state whispers to you constantly, "I am one who lacks." You might not have said these words out loud. You might not even be consciously aware that this belief is running in the background of your mind like software you didn't know you installed. But your life tells the story. Your bank account tells the story. Your constant worry about bills, about the future, about whether there will be enough. All of this reveals the hidden state you've been occupying without realizing it. And from that state of lack, you can take no action, purchase no ticket, make no investment that will permanently alter your circumstances. You might win a little here and there, you might get a raise or find money on the street, but as long as you remain identified with lack at your core, you will always return to lack. This isn't punishment. This is law. The outer world is simply a mirror reflecting back the inner world with perfect accuracy. If this deep, transformative content resonates with you, subscribe to the channel. This is where we explore the real mechanisms of manifestation that create lasting change. Now, I want to go even deeper into this concept because what happens next is where most people experience their greatest breakthrough. If you're resonating with what I'm sharing right now, write in the comments, "I'm ready to shift." What Florence Scovel Shinn discovered wasn't just theory or spiritual philosophy. It was a fundamental law of existence, as precise and predictable as gravity. The outer world faithfully reflects the inner world, every single time, without exception. This isn't poetry. This isn't metaphor. This isn't some feel-good affirmation you put on your vision board and hope works out. This is the actual mechanism of reality. As long as you remain in the state of lack, identifying yourself as someone who doesn't have enough, who struggles, who worries about money, you will always return to lack. No matter what temporary gains you experience. You could win the lottery tomorrow, receive an inheritance, land your dream job. With triple the salary, and if your internal state hasn't shifted, if you're still that person who fundamentally believes, "I am one who lacks," then within months or years, you'll find yourself right back where you started. We see this happen constantly. Lottery winners going bankrupt. People who get massive raises somehow ending up with the same financial stress. It's not bad luck. It's the law of reflection operating with perfect precision. This is where most people's entire understanding of wealth collapses and has to be rebuilt from the ground up. Because here's the fundamental error that keeps humanity trapped in financial struggle. Most people believe wealth is something they must get. They imagine themselves reaching toward it, working toward it, climbing toward it like it's some distant mountain peak they have to conquer. They see abundance as a destination outside themselves, something separate, something other than what they currently are. And this very perception creates the gap that can never be bridged through external action alone. You can hustle until you collapse. You can network until you're exhausted. You can play every lottery, chase every opportunity, work 3 jobs, and still miss the essential truth. Wealth is not something you get. It's something you become. And you become it not through action, not through effort, not through lucky numbers or perfect timing, but through assumption, through a shift in your internal identity, through claiming a new state of consciousness and living from that state until it becomes as natural as breathing. The journey of transformation begins the moment you stop trying to acquire wealth from a position of lack and instead assume the identity of someone who is already wealthy. Not pretending, not faking it. Actually shifting your internal concept of self. This is the hidden mechanism behind every true rags to riches story, every genuine financial breakthrough, every person who seems to effortlessly attract abundance while others struggle endlessly. They're not lucky, they're not special. They simply occupy a different state of being. Now, here's where the real revelation begins to unfold. If you're starting to see how this applies to your own financial situation, put in the comments, "I see it now." Because once you understand that the feeling of the wish fulfilled, not the wish itself, is the creative power, everything changes. This is the secret that has been hidden in plain sight for thousands of years. Most people approach their financial desires completely backwards. They wish for wealth while feeling lack. They hope for abundance while experiencing scarcity. They pray for prosperity while identifying with poverty. And then they wonder why nothing changes. The wish alone has zero creative power. Zero. It's the feeling associated with that wish that creates your reality. The emotional state you occupy is what gets impressed upon your subconscious mind, which then goes to work, orchestrating your external circumstances to match that internal feeling perfectly. Think about what this means for a moment. If you're constantly feeling broke, even while wishing to be rich, your subconscious doesn't hear the wish. It only registers the feeling, and it loyally creates more situations that generate that same feeling of being broke. The feeling is the language your creative power understands. The feeling is the seed you're planting. And you can't plant seeds of lack and expect to harvest abundance. The mathematics of consciousness don't work that way. Now, here's where this gets really fascinating. When Florence Scovel Shinn studied the ancient texts, particularly the Bible, she discovered something extraordinary. These weren't historical documents meant to be taken literally. They were psychological dramas revealing the exact mechanism by which consciousness creates reality. Every character, every story, every parable was actually describing states of consciousness, and the laws governing how those states manifest in the physical world. This understanding is infinitely more valuable than any technique for winning the lottery, any get-rich-quick scheme, any external strategy for accumulating money. Because what these texts reveal is that you are not separate from the creative power of the universe. You are that power, expressing itself through your individual consciousness. The transformation that happens when you truly grasp this is almost indescribable. You stop searching outside yourself for the answers. You stop waiting for external circumstances to change before you can feel wealthy. You recognize that the entire game has been inverted. You don't become wealthy because good things happen to you. Good things happen to you because you've assumed the state of wealth internally first. The external world has no choice but to conform to your internal assumptions. It's law. Now, let me show you exactly how this operates in real life, because the implications of what I'm sharing go far beyond anything you might currently imagine. If this is resonating deeply with you, type in the comments. The feeling is the secret. There's a phrase that Florence Scovel Shinn discovered carries more creative power than any elaborate affirmation you could craft, any prayer you could recite, any ritual you could perform. Just 3 simple words. Isn't it wonderful? That's it. But don't let the simplicity fool you. This phrase is absolutely genius, because it captures the pure essence of fulfillment without limiting how that fulfillment will arrive. When you say, "Isn't it wonderful?" with genuine feeling, you're not specifying exactly what needs to happen or precisely how your abundance should manifest. You're not trying to control the universe or micromanage the delivery system. You're simply occupying the state of wonder, of gratitude, of something marvelous unfolding in your life right now. And that open-ended feeling of fulfillment allows infinite intelligence to work through whatever channels are most natural, most effortless, most aligned with your highest good. Most people strangle their manifestations by being too specific about the how. They need it to come through this job, or that person, or this particular opportunity. But when you just assume the feeling of, "Isn't it wonderful?" you give the creative power of your consciousness complete freedom to orchestrate circumstances in ways your limited rational mind could never have imagined. The universe is far more creative than you are. Let it surprise you. Now, here's something most people never realize about their financial reality. Your inner speech, those private conversations you hold with yourself in the secret chambers of your mind, has been building the world you see around you all along. Every word you say to yourself matters. Every internal narrative you repeat is a command to your subconscious. When you look at your bank account and internally say, "I never have enough," you're not just describing reality, you're creating it. When you see someone else's success and think, "That could never happen to me," You're sealing that belief into your experience. This unconscious narration runs constantly in the background of your awareness, and most people have absolutely no idea how destructive their self-talk actually is. The impact of this revelation cannot be overstated. You've been walking around all day, every day, speaking your world into existence through the stories you tell yourself. And if those stories are stories of limitation, struggle, and lack, then that's exactly what must appear in your external circumstances. Behind the scenes of every moment of financial stress is an internal conversation reinforcing that stress. The transformation begins when you become conscious of this mechanism and start choosing your inner speech deliberately. If you're beginning to recognize your own patterns of self-talk, write in the comments, "I choose different words now." Because here's what nobody wants to tell you about the wealthy. They're not wealthy because they got lucky. They're not wealthy because they work harder than you do. They're not wealthy because they were born into the right family, or went to the right schools, or happen to know the right people. The wealthy are wealthy because they occupy a state of consciousness in which wealth feels natural. And this is the part that's almost uncomfortable to accept, because it means the playing field was never actually uneven in the way you thought it was. Wealthy people don't hope for abundance. They don't wish for it, pray for it, or chase after it. They feel themselves to be abundant. It's their baseline. It's their default setting. It's as natural to them as breathing. And because they occupy that state internally, their external world has no choice but to reflect that reality back to them. Money doesn't chase them because they're special. Money chases them because they've become the kind of person to whom money naturally flows. If something clicked for you while watching this, hit that like button. It helps this message reach others who need to hear it. This brings us to something critically important that most people completely misunderstand. There's a world of difference between thinking positively about wealth and feeling yourself to be wealthy. One is decoration, the other is creation. Positive thinking is what the self-help industry has been selling you for decades. It's affirmations in the mirror, vision boards on your wall, repeating "I am rich" while your body tenses up because some part of you knows you're lying to yourself. That's cosmetic. That's surface level. That's painting over a crack in the wall without actually repairing the foundation. It might make you feel better temporarily, but it doesn't change anything at the core level where your reality is actually being generated. Real creation happens when you shift your deep felt assumption of who you are. When you don't just think about being wealthy, but you actually embody the state of wealth so completely that it becomes your identity. This isn't about convincing yourself of something you don't believe. It's about discovering a truth that was always available to you, but that you'd been conditioned to ignore. The transformation from poverty consciousness to wealth consciousness isn't a journey of acquiring something new. It's a journey of shedding the false beliefs that convinced you that you were separate from abundance in the first place. Every millionaire, every person living in financial freedom made this internal shift first. The money came after. The opportunities came after. The success came after. But the shift in consciousness came first, always. If you're starting to feel the difference between thinking about wealth and being wealth, leave a comment saying, "I am becoming." Let me share a story that perfectly illustrates how this works in real life. There was a businessman who came to one of Florence Scovel Shinn's lectures on the absolute verge of financial ruin. His auditors had examined his books and told him to close his doors. His accounts were nearly empty. The recession had devastated his industry. He owed thousands of dollars he couldn't pay. Every rational indicator screamed that it was over. But this man, with his back against the wall and nothing left to lose, decided to test what Shinn had taught him. For 3 days, he sat in his office and did nothing but imagine. He didn't make desperate phone calls. He didn't beg creditors for more time. He didn't frantically network or send out proposals. He simply imagined his office receiving $4,000 in unexpected payments. He had no idea where this money could possibly come from. His receivables were dead. There were no pending deals. By every logical measure, there was no source for this money. but he persisted in the feeling of already having received it. He saw the checks on his desk. He felt the relief flooding through his body. He inhabited that state completely. On the fourth morning, something extraordinary happened. A customer he hadn't heard from in months called him out of nowhere. This customer asked about a quotation from many months earlier, something that had been forgotten, a dead lead by any reasonable assessment. Within days, he closed a deal that exceeded everything he had imagined. Now, here's what most people miss about this story. The businessman didn't attract that customer through some mystical law of attraction. He didn't send out cosmic vibrations that magically pulled a buyer to him. What happened was far more profound. He became the state of a businessman whose affairs were prospering. He occupied that state so completely, so thoroughly, that the outer world had no choice but to rearrange itself to match his inner reality. The customer who called, the old forgotten quotation that suddenly became relevant, the deal that closed effortlessly. All of this was what Shinn called the bridge of incidents, a series of seemingly unconnected events that formed a perfect pathway from his assumption to its physical manifestation. He didn't plan these events. He couldn't have orchestrated them. His conscious mind had no knowledge they were even possible. But his assumption created the conditions, and reality reorganized itself accordingly. This is the hidden mechanism operating behind every breakthrough, every unexpected opportunity, every moment when life seems to conspire in your favor. If this story is helping you understand how manifestation actually works, comment below. The bridge is forming. What strikes me most about that businessman's story is something many people overlook. He knew about this law before his crisis hit. He'd heard Florence Scovel Shinn teach it. He'd understood it intellectually. But he waited. He reserved it for some future moment of true desperation. And only when the walls were closing in did he finally apply what he'd known all along. How many of you are doing exactly the same thing right now? You're watching this video, nodding along, finding it interesting, maybe even believing it's true. But you're waiting until things get really bad before you'll actually use what you're learning. Don't do that. Use this law now, while you still have peace of mind to practice it calmly, deliberately, without the crushing pressure of desperation. The transformation is so much easier when you're not operating from panic. Let me share another story that reveals something crucial about how this process actually unfolds. There was a woman, 55 years old, who came to Shinn's lectures with absolutely nothing, no job, rent overdue, a car that was falling apart, no family to turn to. Her bank account was nearly empty. By every external measure, she had hit rock bottom. When she first tried to apply what she'd learned, she made a mistake that almost everyone makes. She sat down and tried to imagine having everything she needed: a job, a reliable car, money for rent, proper clothes, food in her refrigerator. The list went on and on. By the time she finished trying to visualize all these different things, she was mentally exhausted. Her energy was scattered, pulled in a dozen directions at once, and she couldn't sustain the imaginal act because there was simply too much to hold in her mind simultaneously. Shinn told her something that changed everything. She said, "Don't imagine the things, imagine the feeling. Just capture the essence of fulfillment in a single phrase." So this woman began using those 3 words we talked about earlier. Isn't it wonderful? Every night as she fell asleep, she would repeat to herself, "Isn't it wonderful? Something marvelous is happening to me right now." She didn't specify what the wonderful thing was. She didn't try to direct or control how it would arrive. She simply felt the reality of wonder, the truth of something beautiful taking shape in her life. She did this for 2 months, night after night, falling asleep in pure wonderment. And then the manifestation came in a way she never could have predicted or planned. A casual conversation with an acquaintance led to a chain of events that resulted in her receiving $2,500 and eventually monthly income for the rest of her life from a wealthy old friend she hadn't seen in 25 years. If you're grasping how powerful simplicity can be, write in the comments, "Isn't it wonderful?" Now, I want to go even deeper into how this mechanism actually operates, because Florence Scovel Shinn discovered something profound in the ancient scriptures that explains why some people's desires manifest while others remain forever unfulfilled. There's a parable about a sower who goes out to plant seeds. Some seeds fall on rocky ground and can't take root. Some fall among thorns and get choked out. But some fall on good soil and bring forth an abundant harvest. This isn't about agriculture. This is about your consciousness and how it creates your financial reality. Your clarified desire, that conscious claim you make that I am wealthy, abundance is natural to me, is the seed. And here's what most people don't understand. That seed contains within itself the complete power and plan of its own expression. Everything needed for your wealth to manifest is already encoded in the desire itself. But a seed held in your hand produces absolutely nothing. You can admire it, study it, turn it over, and examine its potential all day long. But until you actually plant it, it remains mere possibility, never actualization. The planting of the seed happens through feeling. This is where so many people stumble. They hold their desires in their conscious mind, thinking about them, wishing for them, hoping they'll somehow magically materialize. But thinking about the seed isn't planting it. The seed gets planted when you press it into the fertile soil of your subconscious mind through the emotional experience of already having what you desire. This is why Shinn was so fascinated by the Garden of Gethsemane. The word Gethsemane literally means to press out an oily substance. It's the place where seeds are pressed, where the oil of joy and thanksgiving is extracted and expressed. When you contemplate being and possessing what you desire, when you lose yourself, completely in a state of gratitude and joy for its fulfillment, you're performing the actual spiritual act of creation. You're pressing the seed of your desire into your subconscious mind, where it can take root and grow. This is not visualization for the sake of daydreaming. This is not wishful thinking or fantasy. This is the precise mechanical process by which consciousness creates physical reality. The joy you feel in imagination is the pressing. The gratitude you experience for something not yet visible is the planting. And once that seed is properly planted in the rich soil of your subconscious, something remarkable happens that most people never allow to unfold naturally. If you're understanding how powerful the act of feeling gratitude for unseen blessings really is, comment, I'm planting seeds now. Once that seed is planted, something crucial happens that trips up almost everyone who tries this. The seed begins to grow in darkness, and this is where most people sabotage their own manifestation. They plant the seed through feeling, and then immediately they start digging it up to check on its progress. They wake up the next morning and look at their bank account to see if anything changed. They monitor their circumstances obsessively, searching for evidence, analyzing every detail, wondering if it's working, doubting whether they did it right. This constant checking is like a farmer who plants corn and then digs up the seed every day to see if it's sprouting yet. Yulawan would never do that with an actual seed because you know it would kill the growth process. Yet this is exactly what people do with their desires. You don't dig up the seed, you trust the law, you plant it properly through feeling, and then you leave it alone. The subconscious mind knows exactly how to bring forth the harvest. It works while you sleep, while you go about your daily business, while you've completely forgotten about what you planted. This is why patience and trust are not just nice qualities to have. They're essential components of the creative process. The transformation happens in the invisible realm first, and only after sufficient time does it break through into visible manifestation. Now, here's where Florence Scovel Shinn revealed something that completely changes how you understand your own identity and creative power. In the ancient scriptures, God spoke to Moses from the burning bush and said, "I am that I am. Tell them I am has sent you." Most people read this as some external deity making a proclamation. But Shinn discovered the profound truth hidden in those words. The I am is not a deity somewhere in the sky, separate from you, judging you, deciding whether to bless you or not. The I am is your own awareness of being. It's the simple fact that you exist, that you are conscious, that you know yourself to be. This awareness of being is the foundation of everything you experience. And here's the revelation that changes everything. Whatever you attach to this I am becomes your reality. When you say, I am poor, you're not describing an external fact. You're clothing the infinite creative power of the universe in a garment of poverty. You're taking pure consciousness and giving it the form of lack. When you say, I am wealthy, and feel the truth of it, you're clothing that same power in abundance. Your world, which is nothing more than a mirror, must then reflect back to you whatever garment you've chosen. If you're beginning to see how your own self-identification has been creating your financial circumstances, leave a comment saying, I am transforming. This is what most people find almost uncomfortable to accept, because it means the power has been in your hands the entire time. The wealthy are not wealthy because the universe favors them or because they possess some special gift you lack. The wealthy have simply clothed their I am in garments of abundance, and it feels completely natural to them. It's their default identity. They wake up feeling abundant. They move through the world from a position of plenty. Meanwhile, those struggling financially have clothed their I am in garments of lack. And that poverty consciousness feels so familiar, so normal, that they don't even recognize it as a choice anymore. It just feels like who they are. But here's the liberating truth that changes everything. You are not bound to any garment. These states of consciousness are not permanent fixtures of your identity. They're clothing. And you can change your clothes at will. The garments of lack you've been wearing for years, maybe decades, that have felt like your very skin. They're not your skin. They're just garments you put on so long ago that you forgot you were wearing them. Tonight, if you truly grasp what I'm sharing with you, you can begin taking off those old rags of poverty consciousness and putting on the royal robes of abundance. This isn't pretending. This isn't fake it till you make it. This is recognizing that abundance is just as available to you as lack, and it's simply a matter of which state you choose to occupy. Now let me share something that will completely shift how you approach this entire process. There's an enormous difference between thinking of your desire and thinking from your desire. Most people spend their entire lives thinking of wealth. They see it as something distant, something separate from themselves, something over there that they're trying to reach. When you think of wealth, you're automatically positioning yourself outside of it. You're here, wealth is there, and there's a gap between you. No matter how much you visualize or affirm or hope, that gap remains because your fundamental perspective is one of separation. But when you think from wealth, everything transforms. To think from wealth means you occupy the state of already being wealthy. You view your entire world through the lens of abundance. You don't look at wealth from the outside anymore. You're inside it. You are it. This is the shift that dissolves the gap entirely. When you think from the consciousness of wealth, your decisions change, your reactions change, the opportunities you notice change, because you're literally seeing reality through different eyes. This is what Florence Scovel Shinn meant by assumption. You assume the identity so completely that it becomes your natural state of being. If this distinction between thinking of versus thinking from is becoming clear to you, write in the comments, I'm thinking from wealth now. So when do you practice this shift from thinking of to thinking from? Florence Scovel Shinn discovered that the most powerful time to assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled is in those precious moments just before you fall asleep. This isn't arbitrary. There's a specific reason why this twilight state between waking and sleeping holds such creative power. The feeling you carry into sleep is the direct command you give to your subconscious mind. And your subconscious doesn't argue with you. It doesn't say, but wait, you don't actually have money in your bank account. It doesn't challenge or question or analyze. It simply accepts whatever feeling you impress upon it as truth, and then it goes to work throughout the night orchestrating circumstances to match that feeling. Think about what this means. every single night of your life, you've been falling asleep in some emotional state, and that state has been programming your subconscious to create more of the same. If you've been falling asleep, worried about money, anxious about bills, stressed about your financial future, then you've been giving your subconscious the command to generate more situations that produce worry, anxiety, and stress. Night after night, year after year, you've been reinforcing the very conditions you claim you want to escape. But tonight, that changes. Tonight, you fall asleep as a wealthy person. You let the last feeling of the day be abundance, security, gratitude for all that you have. You drift into sleep from the consciousness of fulfillment. And while your body rests, your subconscious mind begins constructing the bridge of incidents that will bring your assumption into physical manifestation. Now here's the law that makes all of this possible, and it's a law that cannot be broken under any circumstances. An assumption, though false, if persisted in, will harden into fact. Read that again, because it's the key to everything. Even if your current assumption of wealth feels completely false right now, even if every shred of evidence contradicts it, if you persist in that assumption, it will solidify into your lived reality. At first, the new garment of abundance will feel strange on you. It might feel like you're pretending, like you're lying to yourself, like you're playing make-believe. This is completely normal. You've worn the garments of lack for so long that wealth feels foreign, unfamiliar, uncomfortable. But this is just the initial resistance of old patterns giving way to new ones. Keep putting on the new garment. Keep assuming the feeling. Keep falling asleep as a wealthy person. The strangeness will fade, and what once felt impossible will become your natural state. If you're committed to persisting in your new assumption, regardless of current appearances, comment below. I persist until it hardens. Let me show you just how precisely this law works, even with the smallest desires. There was a woman who wanted to test what Florence Scovel Shinn taught her on something that seemed almost trivial. She saw a picture of a specific hat in a fashion magazine, cut it out, and studied it carefully. Then she closed her eyes and imagined herself wearing that exact hat. She felt it on her head. She saw herself walking down the street in it. She did this exercise just once, one single time. The following week she met some friends for lunch, and one of them was wearing that exact hat. They all admired it together. The very next day, a package arrived at her door by special messenger. Inside was the hat. Her friend had sent it with a note, saying she didn't know why she'd bought it in the first place, but for some reason, she felt it would look better on someone else. The friend's inexplicable purchase, the inexplicable impulse to give it away, these weren't coincidences. They were the bridge of incidents unfolding with perfect precision to match her assumption. Now, I'm not telling you this story because I want you to manifest hats. I'm sharing it because it demonstrates something crucial about how this mechanism operates. The law works on everything. Small desires and enormous desires obey the exact same principle. If you can manifest a hat, you can manifest a fortune. The only difference is the content of your assumption, not the process itself. But here's where most people completely sabotage their own manifestations. They want to know how their desire will manifest. They want to see the path before they walk it. They want guarantees, roadmaps, detailed step-by-step plans. They need to understand the mechanism before they'll trust it. And this demand to know the how is actually one of the greatest obstacles to manifestation. When the businessman imagined receiving $4,000, he had no idea that a dormant customer would call. He couldn't have predicted it. When the woman fell asleep saying, "Isn't it wonderful?" she had no clue that a casual conversation would lead to a lifetime income. She could never have orchestrated those events through her conscious planning. Your subconscious mind is connected to infinite intelligence. It knows things you don't know. It sees connections you cannot see. It perceives possibilities that your rational mind would dismiss as impossible. When you assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, you're essentially giving instructions to this infinite intelligence. And then you must trust it to construct the bridge. That bridge might include events you never anticipated, people you've never met, opportunities that seem completely unrelated to your goal at first. But each step is purposeful. Each incident is part of the design working itself out in your favor. If you're ready to let go of needing to know the how and trust the process, comment, "I trust the bridge." Your job is not to understand every detail of how the universe will rearrange itself to match your assumption. Your job is to trust the design and, critically, to recognize the bridge when it begins to appear. Because here's what happens to so many people. They make their assumption, they do the inner work, and then when opportunities start presenting themselves, when unexpected doors begin to open, when certain people suddenly enter their lives with offers or suggestions, they dismiss it all as coincidence. They're so busy looking for some grand, obvious miracle that they walk right past the very bridge their consciousness constructed for them. The bridge rarely looks the way you expect it to look. It might start with a casual conversation. It might come through someone you barely know. It might require you to take an action that seems completely unrelated to your financial goal. But when you recognize these moments as your bridge and you cross it, you complete the circuit between assumption and manifestation. Now let me bring all of this together with something that Florence Scovel Shinn used to illustrate the difference between the world's way and the way of consciousness. Think about the external lottery, the one where you buy a ticket at the convenience store and hope your numbers get called. That lottery operates on mathematical probability. Millions of people enter. One person wins. The odds are brutally against you, and yet people continue to play because they've been taught that this is how fortune works. Through random chance, through being lucky, through hoping that external forces will somehow favor them over everyone else. But there's another lottery happening simultaneously, one that most people never discover, the internal lottery of assumption. And this lottery operates on an entirely different principle. It doesn't operate on probability, it operates on certainty. In this lottery, everyone who plays wins. Not some, not a lucky few, everyone. Because this isn't a game of chance. This is a law of consciousness. When you assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, and you persist in that assumption until it becomes your natural state, manifestation is guaranteed. Not maybe, not possibly, guaranteed. The question has never been, will this work? The question has always been, will you actually do it? Will you actually assume the state of wealth? Will you actually persist when everything around you seems to contradict your assumption? Will you actually fall asleep night after night in the feeling of abundance even when your bank account says otherwise? This is the fork in the road where most people turn back. They understand the teaching intellectually. They find it fascinating. They believe it might be true. But when it comes time to actually live from the assumption, to actually occupy the state, regardless of appearances, they hesitate. They want proof first. They want to see results before they fully commit. But that's not how this works. The commitment comes first. The assumption comes first. The feeling comes first. And then, inevitably, the manifestation follows. If you're ready to stop playing the external lottery and start playing the one you're guaranteed to win, write in the comments, "I choose certainty over chance." Because here's something that will completely transform how you approach your desires from this moment forward. Hope is not assumption. In fact, hope is the opposite of assumption. Hope is doubt wearing a smile. When you hope for something, you're inherently acknowledging that you don't have it. You're confessing lack while trying to sound optimistic about it. You're saying, maybe someday, if I'm lucky, if the stars align, if everything works out, then I might have what I want. That's not creation. That's waiting. That's passivity dressed up as positivity. When you assume, there's no maybe. There's no someday. There's only now. You feel yourself to be wealthy now, in this very moment, regardless of what your bank statement says. And because you occupy that state now, the outer manifestation must follow, as surely as a shadow follows a body. The shadow doesn't question whether it should follow. It doesn't hope to follow. It just does, because that's the law. Your external circumstances are the shadow. Your internal state is the body. Change the body, and the shadow has no choice but to change with it. This is why you see such a tragic pattern with people who win traditional lotteries. The statistics are heartbreaking. A massive percentage of lottery winners end up broke again within just a few years, sometimes in even worse financial condition than before they won. Why does this happen? Because they manifested the money without changing their state of consciousness. They touched wealth externally, but internally they remained people who felt poor at their core. That poverty consciousness, that identity of lack, persisted underneath the temporary influx of cash. And gradually, inevitably, that state reclaimed them. The money flowed out as mysteriously as it had flowed in because their fundamental assumption about themselves was still one of scarcity. This reveals something profound about the nature of lasting transformation. For wealth to become a permanent feature of your life, for abundance to stick rather than slip through your fingers, you must become wealthy in consciousness first, not after you get the money, not once you see proof. Now, before any external evidence appears, you claim the identity of a wealthy person and you live from that state so completely that when the money does arrive, it feels natural, expected, like it was always meant to be yours. Because it was. You created the conditions for it through your assumption, and now it's simply flowing to match the consciousness you've been occupying. If you understand why internal transformation must precede external change, leave a comment saying, "Consciousness comes first." So now that you understand the principle, let me give you the exact practical method for actually doing this work. Because understanding intellectually is one thing, but application is where transformation happens. First, you need to create the right conditions. Find a quiet place where you won't be disturbed. This might be your bedroom at night, a peaceful room during the day, or any space where you can be completely alone with your imagination. Sit or lie down comfortably. Let your body settle into stillness. This physical immobility is more important than most people realize. When your body is perfectly still, it becomes much easier to withdraw your attention from the outer world and focus it entirely within. You're essentially shutting down the external stimuli so that your imagination can become more vivid than your physical senses. Once you're physically still, you want to induce what Florence Scovel Shinn called the drowsy state. This is that delicious borderland between being fully awake and falling asleep. You know that moment when your limbs start to feel heavy, when your thoughts begin to soften and drift, when the sharp edges of waking consciousness start to blur? That's the state you're aiming for. You're still conscious enough to direct your attention, still aware enough to construct a scene in your imagination, but you're relaxed enough that your critical mind has loosened its grip. The outer world has receded. Your senses have dulled. You're alone with your inner vision. This drowsy state is precious beyond measure because in it, the subconscious mind becomes extraordinarily receptive. The barrier between your conscious desires and your subconscious creative power becomes thin, almost transparent. It's the perfect gateway for your assumptions to pass from the realm of imagination into the machinery of manifestation. During your normal waking hours, your rational mind constantly filters and judges and questions everything. But in this twilight state, that filter dissolves. Your subconscious accepts impressions more readily, more deeply, more permanently. This is why falling asleep is such a powerful time for this work. You're naturally entering this receptive state anyway, so you might as well use it deliberately. Instead of drifting off while worrying about tomorrow's problems or replaying today's frustrations, you consciously choose what feeling, what state, what identity you'll impress upon your subconscious as you cross the threshold into sleep. The impact of this practice compounds night after night, creating momentum that eventually becomes unstoppable. If you're ready to start using this drowsy state intentionally tonight, write in the comments, "Tonight I begin." Once you're in that drowsy, receptive state, the next step is to construct a simple scene in your imagination that implies your desire has already been realized. Notice I said simple. This is crucial. Don't try to create an elaborate movie with multiple acts and complex storylines. Choose one brief, vivid moment. Maybe you see yourself being congratulated by a friend who says, "I'm so happy for you. Your life has completely changed." Maybe you're looking at a bank statement that shows the abundance you desire. Maybe you hear yourself speaking to a loved one, telling them casually about how wonderful things have become. Pick one scene, one short moment that would only exist if your wish were already fulfilled. The key is that this scene must imply fulfillment. It can't be you working toward wealth or hoping for wealth or trying to get wealth. It has to be a moment that could only happen after wealth has already arrived. This is how you compress your entire desire into a single snapshot that your subconscious can grasp and work with. The scene is just a vehicle, a way of capturing the feeling of the wish fulfilled in a form your imagination can hold on to. Now here's where most people make a critical mistake that completely undermines the effectiveness of this practice. They construct their scene, but then they watch it like they're sitting in a movie. Theater observing themselves on a screen. They see themselves from the outside, as if they're a character in someone else's story. This creates distance. This keeps you separate from the experience. And separation is exactly what you're trying to dissolve. You must be in the scene, not watching it, living it. See through your own eyes, not through the eyes of an invisible observer. If someone is congratulating you, don't watch yourself receiving congratulations. Feel the warmth of their embrace, or the pressure of their handshake on your actual hand. If you're looking at a bank statement, feel the paper between your fingers. Notice the texture. If you're speaking to a loved one, feel the vibration of your own voice in your throat as you speak the words. Engage every sense you can. Make the scene as vivid as any memory you have of something that actually happened to you. The sensory richness is what gives this imaginal act its power. It's what convinces your subconscious that this is real, that this has happened, that this is you now. The transformation from observer to participant is the difference between fantasizing and creating. When you're truly in the scene, your nervous system can't tell the difference between imagination and physical reality. Your subconscious accepts it as an actual experience, and from that acceptance, manifestation flows naturally. If you're understanding how crucial it is to be in your scene rather than watching it, comment below, "I am in it." Now, once you've constructed your scene and you're fully immersed in it, living it from the inside, you repeat it. Play it like a continuous loop, the same brief moment, over and over again. But here's what's important. Don't strain. Don't force it. Let the scene unfold naturally, easily, the way a pleasant memory might replay in your mind. Each repetition deepens the impression you're making on your subconscious. Each time you loop through it, the groove gets a little deeper, the pathway a little clearer, the assumption a little more natural. But understand this, the scene itself is merely a means to an end. The real power isn't in the visual details or the specific words being spoken. The power is in the feeling that scene produces in you. As you repeat this imaginal act, pay close attention to what you're feeling. Is it relief? Is it joy? Is it a quiet sense of rightness? A feeling of course this is how my life is now? Whatever that feeling is, let it saturate your consciousness completely. Let it fill every corner of your awareness. Let it become more real than the physical room where your body is resting. The scene is just the vehicle delivering you to that feeling. Once you've captured the feeling, you can even let the scene fade away and just marinate in that pure emotional state. Now, I want to shift gears and talk about something that's been creating your financial reality every single day without you even realizing it. For one full day, I want you to simply observe your inner speech about money, not trying to change it yet, just becoming aware of it. What do you say to yourself when a bill arrives in the mail? What's your internal reaction when you hear someone else talking about their success? What story do you habitually repeat about your financial future when you're alone with your thoughts? Most people have never consciously listened to this internal narration, and what they discover when they finally do is shocking. These phrases, running through your mind, are not neutral observations. They're not just commentary on your life. They are commands. They are decrees. They are creative statements that your subconscious takes as instructions for what to manifest. When you look at your bank account and internally say, "I never have enough," you're not describing reality, you're commanding more of the same. When you see someone else's abundance and think, "That could never be me," you're sealing that limitation into your experience. Your inner speech is the language of creation, and most people are unconsciously speaking poverty into existence from morning until night. The journey toward lasting financial transformation requires you to become conscious of this hidden dialogue and then deliberately reshape it. If you're willing to spend one day honestly observing what you say to yourself about money, write in the comments, "I'm listening to myself now." Once you've spent that day observing your inner speech and you've seen the patterns clearly, the next step is conscious replacement. Every time you catch yourself using a limiting phrase, you stop and revise it in the moment. When you hear yourself thinking, "I can't afford that," you immediately replace it with, "I always have more than enough." When the old recording of "money is tight" starts playing, you interrupt it and say instead, "Wealth flows to me naturally and easily." At first, these new phrases will feel awkward, maybe even dishonest. Part of you will resist and say, "But that's not true. You're lying to yourself." But here's what you need to understand. You're not lying. You're creating yourself. You're using the creative power of speech to weave a new identity, to construct a new reality from the inside out. An assumption, remember, though false, if persisted in will harden into fact. These new phrases feel false only because you've been speaking the old ones for so long that they became your baseline. But that baseline was just as much a creation as the new one you're building now. The difference is, you created the old one unconsciously, and you're creating the new one deliberately. Over time, and this happens faster than most people expect, the new speech becomes habitual. What felt forced becomes natural. What felt like pretending becomes your genuine internal voice. And as your inner speech changes, everything else follows. Your feelings change, your assumptions change, your decisions change, and inevitably, your world changes. Now let me address something that stops many people before they even get started. They think they need to be perfect at this. They think one moment of doubt will destroy everything they've built, that if they slip back into old patterns even once, they've failed and have to start over. This kind of all or nothing thinking is paralyzing, and it's completely unnecessary. The subconscious mind is impressed by persistence, not perfection. You don't need to hold the feeling of wealth every single moment of every single day. That would be impossible. What matters is the dominant state, the state you return to most often, the state that characterizes the overall tone of your consciousness, and especially the state you fall asleep in at night. Think of it like walking toward a destination. Sometimes you stumble. Sometimes you veer off the path momentarily. But as long as you keep returning to the right direction, as long as you keep moving forward more often than you move backward, you will absolutely arrive. The occasional slip into old thinking doesn't prevent your manifestation. It only delays it if you let that slip convince you to give up entirely. So when you notice yourself falling back into poverty consciousness, don't panic, don't judge yourself harshly, don't conclude that the law doesn't work for you. Simply notice it, and gently redirect your attention back to the feeling of abundance. If you're committed to persistent practice without demanding perfection from yourself, comment, progress, not perfection. There's one more powerful technique I want to share with you that can accelerate your transformation dramatically. Every night before you fall asleep, take a few moments to review the day that just ended. If there was any event that disturbed you, any moment when you felt lack or fear or unworthiness around money, you're going to revise it. Not in the external world. You can't change what already happened in physical reality, but you can absolutely change it in the psychological realm. And that's where it truly matters. If a bill arrived today and you felt that familiar surge of panic, go back to that moment in your imagination and reconstruct it. See yourself opening that envelope with complete calm. Feel the confidence of someone who knows they're abundantly provided for. Hear yourself saying something different, thinking something different. You're not denying that the original event happened. You're changing your psychological relationship to it. You're releasing its hold on your subconscious. Because here's what most people don't realize. The past that shapes your present isn't the historical past. It's the psychological past. The past as it lives in your memory, colored by your emotional reactions to it. Change the memory, change its emotional charge, and you change its influence on your current state. This practice of revision is like pruning a tree. You're cutting away the branches that don't serve your growth so that new, healthier branches can flourish. Night after night, you're systematically removing the psychological debris that's been feeding your poverty consciousness. Now let me bring this full circle to where we began. That lottery ticket you might have in your pocket, or that you've thought about buying, what does it really represent? It represents hope invested in external chance. It represents the belief that your fortune depends on something outside yourself, on random probability, on being the lucky one chosen from millions. But everything Florence Scovel Shinn discovered, everything I've shared with you today, points to a radically different truth. There is no external chance. There is no random luck. There is only the law of assumption operating with absolute precision in every moment. The real lottery ticket, the one that wins every single time without exception, is not made of paper. It wasn't purchased at a convenience store. It's your consciousness, wearing the garment of the wish fulfilled. It's your imagination clothing the I am in abundance. It's you making the decision right now, tonight, to occupy the state of wealth, regardless of what your current circumstances look like. This is the ticket that never loses. This is the game where everyone who truly plays actually wins. The only question that remains is whether you'll keep investing in external hope or whether you'll finally claim the creative power that's been yours all along. If you're ready to stop playing games of chance and start playing the game of consciousness, write in the comments, "I claim my power now." If you've made it all the way to this point, you're already different from most people who stumbled across this video. You didn't just click away when things got challenging or when the truth felt uncomfortable. You stayed, you listened, you absorbed, and that tells me something important about you. You're actually ready for this transformation. You're not just casually curious. You're serious about changing your relationship with money, with abundance, with your own creative power. This is exactly the kind of content I create here on this channel. Teachings that go beneath the surface, that challenge the conventional wisdom, that actually give you the tools to transform your life from the inside out. If you found value in what we explored today, if something shifted in you while watching this, then subscribe to the channel because there's so much more where this came from. We're building something real here, a community of people who understand that consciousness is the only reality and who are actively using that knowledge to create lives of genuine abundance. And do me a favor, leave a comment right now saying, "This message was meant for me." When you write those words, you're not just engaging with the algorithm, you're affirming to yourself that this wasn't random, that you were supposed to find this teaching at exactly this moment in your journey. That's powerful. If this video resonated with you, if it gave you clarity or hope or a practical path forward, go ahead and hit that like button. It helps this message reach more people who need to hear it, people who are still playing the external lottery when they could be claiming their power. And listen, there's a video right here that goes even deeper into how to maintain these assumptions when your external world is screaming the opposite at you. It's the perfect next step. Click. And continue with me over there, because your transformation is just beginning, and I want to walk this entire path with you.